A poor boy saved a millionaire's son from tragedy. But when the millionaire left him at home, he didn't expect his son to be in trouble again. Windale, a city of shimmering skyscrapers and bustling streets, was home to Jonathan Carter, a name synonymous with success. A tech innovator and the CEO of Carter Industries, Jonathan had built his empire from the ground up, earning accolades and fortune along the way. Yet, despite his soaring achievements, his life had been marked by a tragedy that no amount of wealth could erase. Jonathan's office on the 45th floor of Carter Tower offered a breathtaking view of the city, a panorama that reflected his dominance in the corporate world. From that vantage point, he could see the sprawling cityscape, a place that pulsed with life, innovation, and ambition. But to Jonathan, it often felt hollow. 3 years earlier, Jonathan's world had been shattered in an instant. His wife, Elena, had been his anchor, his partner, and his greatest source of joy. They had met in college, where her quiet brilliance and empathetic nature had captivated him. Together, they had built a life of love and shared dreams. But one rainy evening, a careless driver ended it all. The memory of that night haunted him. The phone call, the hospital, the unbearable silence afterward. Jonathan had buried himself in work to escape the grief, throwing his energy into his company and becoming a man of unyielding focus. However, there was one light in his life that kept him tethered to hope. His son, Oliver. At just 5 years old, Oliver was the mirror of his mother. From his unruly auburn curls to his sparkling green eyes. The boy's laughter was Jonathan's only solace, a reminder that not everything was lost. Yet being a single father wasn't easy, and Jonathan often felt ill-equipped to give Oliver the emotional connection he needed. Their sprawling mansion in the city's affluent district was as much a prison as it was a refuge. Its polished floors and grand chandeliers offered no warmth. It was a house that lacked the heartbeat of a family, a hollow monument to wealth. Jonathan's days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and decisions that affected thousands. Yet, amidst the chaos, there were moments when he stopped to wonder if this relentless pace was worth it. Was he truly living, or merely existing? Oliver, for his part, didn't understand his father's distance. He loved Jonathan unconditionally, craving his attention and seeking his approval in the smallest of ways. "Dad, can we go to the park today?" Oliver would ask with hopeful eyes. Jonathan's heart ached every time he had to say no. "Not today, buddy. I have a meeting." The disappointment on Oliver's face lingered in Jonathan's mind long after the boy had gone off to play by himself. One evening, after another exhausting day at the office, Jonathan sat in his study, staring at a photo of Elena. Her smile seemed to whisper reminders of a simpler time, of a life filled with joy and connection. "I miss you," he murmured, his voice barely audible in the quiet room. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Clara, the family's longtime housekeeper, and one of the few constants in Oliver's life. "Sir, Oliver's been asking to spend time with you," she said gently. "Perhaps a day out together would do you both some good." Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. He had heard this before from Clara, who always encouraged him to prioritize his son. This time, though, her words struck a chord. "Maybe you're right," he said, surprising himself. Clara smiled knowingly. "I'm always right," she teased, before leaving him alone with his thoughts. That night, as Jonathan tucked Oliver into bed, he made a decision. "Hey, buddy," he said, brushing the boy's curls from his forehead. "What do you think about going to the river tomorrow? We can skip stones and have a picnic, just like Grandpa and I used to do when I was your age." Oliver's eyes widened with excitement, Really, Dad? You mean it? Jonathan smiled, nodding. I mean it. The boy wrapped his small arms around Jonathan's neck, his joy so palpable that it made Jonathan's chest tighten. For the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in years: anticipation for the day ahead. The morning sun streamed through the mansion's tall windows, casting golden light on the polished floors. Jonathan Carter stood in the kitchen, packing sandwiches and fruit into a small picnic basket. Oliver, dressed in his favorite red baseball cap and sneakers, bounced around the room with boundless energy. Dad, do you think we'll see frogs at the river? Oliver asked, his green eyes wide with excitement. Maybe, Jonathan replied with a chuckle, ruffling his son's curls. But no catching them, okay? We're just here to enjoy nature. With the picnic basket packed and a blanket slung over his shoulder, Jonathan felt an unfamiliar sense of lightness. It had been far too long since he'd done something so simple, yet meaningful. The drive to the river took them out of the city and into the lush countryside. Tall trees lined the winding road, their green canopies swaying gently in the summer breeze. Oliver pressed his face against the car window, marveling at the scenery. Dad, look! A deer, he exclaimed, pointing to a small herd grazing in a clearing. Jonathan glanced over, a smile tugging at his lips. You've got good eyes, kiddo. When they arrived at the river, the sight of the clear, flowing water took Jonathan back to his own childhood. He had spent countless summer days here with his father, skipping stones and chasing minnows. Now, he was here with his son, hoping to create similar memories. They found a shaded spot under a towering oak tree and laid out the blanket. Oliver immediately dashed to the riverbank, picking up smooth stones and testing their weight. Watch this, Dad, he called out, his small arm swinging forward as he attempted to skip a stone. It plopped into the water with a splash, sinking immediately. Jonathan laughed. Close, buddy. Let me show you how it's done. He walked over, selecting a flat, round stone and crouching by the water's edge. With a practiced flick of his wrist, he sent the stone skipping across the surface, leaving a trail of ripples behind. Whoa, that was awesome, Oliver exclaimed, clapping his hands. Jonathan handed him another stone. Now you try. Remember, it's all in the wrist. The hours passed in a blissful blur of laughter, sandwiches, and shared stories. For the first time in years, Jonathan felt truly present. He watched as Oliver explored the riverbank, his curiosity and joy a stark contrast to the weight Jonathan often carried on his shoulders. Dad, can I go closer to the water? Oliver asked, his small feet already inching toward the edge. Just be careful, Jonathan said, standing to stretch. I'll grab us some ice cream from the truck down the road. Stay where I can see you, okay? Oliver nodded enthusiastically, his attention already fixed on the water. Jonathan made his way up the grassy path toward the ice cream truck parked near the river's entrance. The vendor greeted him warmly, and he ordered 2 cones, 1 chocolate, 1 vanilla. As he waited, he glanced back toward the river, his gaze instinctively searching for Oliver. The boy was still by the water's edge, crouched down and splashing his hands in the shallows. Jonathan smiled, a flicker of contentment warming him, but the serene moment was shattered by a sound that made Jonathan's heart drop. A panicked scream. Help! Somebody help! Jonathan turned, the ice cream cones falling to the ground as he sprinted back toward the river. Oliver! He shouted, his voice breaking with fear. As he reached the riverbank, his worst nightmare came into view. Oliver had waded into the water and lost his footing on the slippery rocks. The current, stronger than it appeared, had swept him further into the river. The boy's arms flailed as he struggled to keep his head above the surface. "Dad!" Oliver screamed, his voice filled with terror. Jonathan froze for a moment, his chest tightening as panic took hold. The water was too deep, and he couldn't see a safe way to reach his son. Before he could react, a blur of movement caught his eye. A boy, no older than 17, emerged from the trees. His dark skin glistened with sweat, and his worn, oversized clothes clung to his wiry frame. Without hesitation, the boy dropped his tattered backpack and dove into the water. His strong, swift strokes propelled him toward Oliver, who was now bobbing dangerously close to the middle of the river. "Hold on!" the boy shouted, his voice steady despite the urgency of the moment. The crowd that had gathered along the riverbank watched in stunned silence as the boy reached Oliver. Wrapping one arm securely around the struggling child, he used the other to paddle against the current. It was a fight against the river's strength, but determination blazed in the boy's eyes. Slowly but surely, he inched closer to the shore. When his feet finally found solid ground, he stumbled onto the bank, gasping for air. Oliver clung to him, trembling but unharmed. Jonathan rushed forward, his knees hitting the ground as he pulled Oliver into his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. Oliver nodded, his small hands clutching his father's shirt. "He saved me, Dad. The boy saved me." Jonathan turned to the young rescuer, his eyes filled with gratitude and disbelief. The boy was sitting on the ground, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. "Thank you," Jonathan said, his voice shaking. "You saved my son's life." The boy looked up, his dark eyes meeting Jonathan's. "I couldn't just stand there," he said simply. As the reality of what had just happened sank in, Jonathan realized he had to know more about this brave young stranger. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone gentle but insistent. The boy hesitated, his gaze shifting to the ground. "I'm Liam," he said finally. Jonathan extended his hand, his grip firm but kind. "Liam, I owe you everything. Please, come with us. Let me thank you properly." Liam looked at Oliver, who gave him a shy but grateful smile. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt a spark of connection, as though he was no longer invisible. The drive back to the Carter mansion was steeped in silence, except for the gentle hum of the engine. Oliver sat in the back seat, wrapped in a blanket Jonathan had retrieved from the trunk, his small frame still trembling from the ordeal. Beside him, Liam stared out of the window, his damp clothes clinging to his thin frame, a mix of exhaustion and unease etched on his face. Jonathan stole a glance at the boy through the rearview mirror. Something about Liam intrigued him, a quiet resilience, a spark of strength that belied his age and situation. "Liam," Jonathan began, his tone gentle, "you didn't have to jump in like that. It was dangerous. Why did you?" Liam hesitated, his gaze fixed on the passing trees. "I couldn't just watch," he said simply. "No one else was doing anything." Jonathan nodded, touched by the boy's selflessness. "I'll forever be grateful for what you did. You saved my son. That's not something I'll ever forget." Liam gave a small shrug, uncomfortable with the attention. "Anyone would have done the same," he murmured. When they arrived at the mansion, the sight of the sprawling estate left Liam speechless. The expansive gardens, the marble steps leading up to the grand entrance, and the towering windows that gleamed in the sunlight. It all seemed like a world he had only glimpsed through shop windows or television screens. Jonathan opened the door and gestured for Liam to follow. "Come on in. You need to get warm and dry." Inside, the warmth of the house enveloped them. Clara, the housekeeper, appeared almost instantly, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" she asked, her eyes darting to the soaked boy standing awkwardly in the grand foyer. "Everything's fine now, thanks to Liam," Jonathan said, patting Liam on the shoulder. "Could you prepare a hot bath and find him some dry clothes? He's been through a lot." Clara nodded, her gaze softening. "Of course." As Liam was led upstairs, Jonathan turned to Oliver, crouching down to his level. "Are you okay, buddy?" Oliver nodded, his voice quiet. "Dad, are we going to help Liam? He doesn't look like he has anywhere to go." Jonathan smiled faintly, ruffling his son's hair. "That's exactly what we're going to do." Upstairs, Liam sank into the warm water of the bathtub, the heat soothing his aching muscles. As the grime and mud washed away, he stared at his reflection in the water. For years, he had fought to stay invisible, to avoid drawing attention to himself. And yet, in one reckless moment, he had stepped into the spotlight. After the bath, Clara handed him a set of clean clothes, simple but comfortable, and guided him back downstairs. The dining room table was set with a steaming bowl of soup and a plate of sandwiches. "Eat," Jonathan said, motioning to the chair across from him. "You must be starving." Liam hesitated, but the aroma was too enticing to resist. He took a seat, his first bite tentative. The warmth of the food was almost overwhelming, and he quickly devoured the meal, unaware of Jonathan's watchful eyes. When the meal was over, Jonathan leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Liam, you don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to share, but I'd like to know about you. Where are you from? Where's your family?" Liam's grip tightened on the edge of the table, his gaze dropping to his lap. He took a deep breath before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. "My mom, she passed away a few weeks ago," he said, his words heavy with pain. "It was just the two of us. After she got sick, we lost our apartment. We lived on the streets for a while. She tried to keep us safe, but..." His voice cracked, and he shook his head, unable to continue. Jonathan's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry, Liam. No one your age should have to go through that." Liam shrugged, though his expression betrayed the depth of his grief. "It's just how things are. I've been managing." Jonathan nodded, understanding that this boy had lived a life far harder than his years should allow. "You've been incredibly strong. But you don't have to do this alone anymore." Liam looked up, his dark eyes searching Jonathan's face for any hint of insincerity. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, his tone a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Jonathan's answer was simple, but heartfelt. "Because you saved my son. And because I've been where you are. Lost. Scared. Not knowing where to turn. Someone helped me once, and it changed my life. Now, I want to do the same for you." For the first time in years, Liam allowed himself to feel the faintest glimmer of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but as he sat there, warm and full, he began to wonder if he might finally have a chance at something better. The following morning, the Carter household buzzed with activity. Jonathan, clad in a crisp suit, stood in the kitchen sipping his coffee as he went over the details of an upcoming business trip. Oliver sat at the table swinging his legs, while Liam leaned against the counter, still adjusting to the strange sense of normalcy this house provided. "Liam," Jonathan said, setting his mug down, "I need to be out of town for the day, possibly overnight. I've thought about this, and I trust you to look after Oliver while I'm gone." Liam blinked, caught off guard. "Me? But I mean, what if something happens?" Jonathan smiled, his confidence unwavering. "You've already proven you can handle responsibility. You're the only one I trust with my son. Clara will check in later, but for now, you'll have the house to yourselves." Liam's stomach churned with a mix of pride and anxiety. This was new territory. "I'll do my best," he said, his voice steady despite the nervous energy building inside him. Jonathan ruffled Oliver's hair. "Be good for Liam, all right?" Oliver grinned. "We'll be fine, Dad." Jonathan nodded, kissed his son on the head, and grabbed his briefcase. "Call me if you need anything," he said, casting one last reassuring glance at Liam before heading out the door. For the first hour, things went smoothly. Liam and Oliver played a few rounds of a video game in the living room, Oliver's laughter echoing through the house as Liam struggled to keep up. "You're terrible at this," Oliver teased, his tiny hands gripping the controller. "Give me a break," Liam shot back with a chuckle. "I didn't exactly have a lot of time for video games before this." When the game ended, Oliver jumped up, full of restless energy. "Let's build something," Liam raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "A fort," Oliver declared, running toward the dining room. Before Liam could protest, Oliver began gathering cushions and blankets, creating a makeshift structure near the dining table. Liam joined in, a small smile tugging at his lips. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done something so carefree. "You're pretty good at this," Oliver said, standing back to admire their handiwork. "Yeah, well, I've had some practice," Liam replied, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Me and my mom used to make forts when it got too cold outside. It was the only way to stay warm sometimes." Oliver tilted his head, sensing the weight in Liam's words. "Do you miss her?" Liam's throat tightened. "Every day." Oliver nodded solemnly, then suddenly brightened. "Well, I think she'd like this fort. It's awesome." Liam laughed softly. "Yeah, I think she would." After lunch, Oliver dashed upstairs to grab his toy cars, leaving Liam to clean up the kitchen. As he wiped down the counters, a loud crash echoed through the house. "Oliver?" Liam called, his heart racing. He sprinted up the stairs, following the sound to Oliver's room. The sight that greeted him froze him in his tracks. A tall wooden cupboard had toppled over, trapping Oliver beneath its weight. "Liam!" Oliver's panicked voice called out, muffled by the heavy furniture. Liam darted forward, adrenaline surging through his veins. He crouched beside the fallen cupboard, assessing the situation. "It's okay, Oliver. I'm here. Just stay still." Using every ounce of strength he could muster, Liam wedged his shoulder under the edge of the cupboard and pushed. The weight was immense, and his muscles burned with the effort. "Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth, summoning every bit of willpower. Slowly, the cupboard began to tilt. "Can you move, Oliver?" Liam asked, his voice strained. I think so," Oliver whimpered. "Okay, on the count of 3, crawl out. 1, 2, 3. With a final push, Liam lifted the cupboard just enough for Oliver to wriggle free. The boy scrambled out, tears streaming down his face as he clutched his arm. Liam let the cupboard fall back with a thud, collapsing onto the floor beside Oliver. His breath came in ragged gasps, his body trembling from exertion. "Are you okay?" Liam asked, pulling Oliver into a hug. Oliver nodded, his small body shaking. "My arm hurts," he said, his voice quivering. Liam gently examined the arm. It wasn't broken, but it was already starting to bruise. "We need to get some ice on that." In the kitchen, Liam wrapped a bag of frozen peas in a towel and held it against Oliver's arm. The boy winced, but didn't complain. "You're really brave. You know that," Liam said, his voice soft. Oliver sniffled. "Not as brave as you." "You saved me again." Liam's heart swelled at the words, but he quickly deflected. "It's what anyone would have done." Oliver shook his head. "You're like a hero or something." Liam smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from Oliver's face. "I'm just glad you're okay." When Jonathan returned later that evening, he immediately noticed the tension in the air. "Everything all right?" he asked, his gaze darting between Liam and Oliver. Oliver jumped up, his face lighting up. "Dad! Liam saved me!" Jonathan's brows knitted in confusion. "Saved you? What happened?" Liam hesitated, not wanting to cause trouble. But Oliver eagerly recounted the story, his words tumbling over each other in excitement. Jonathan's expression shifted from concern to gratitude as the tale unfolded. He knelt in front of Liam, his voice thick with emotion. "I trusted you with my son, and you proved that trust 100 times over," Jonathan said. "Thank you, Liam. I don't even know how to begin to repay you." Liam looked down, feeling a mix of pride and embarrassment. "You don't need to repay me. I just did what I had to." Jonathan placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, his gaze firm. "You're more than just a boy who helped out. You're family now, Liam, and I don't take that lightly." For the first time, Liam felt like he belonged. And as he sat down to dinner with Jonathan and Oliver, he realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something he'd always dreamed of: a real home. Liam woke up to the faint hum of voices drifting through the hallway. He rubbed his eyes, the soft sheets beneath him still feeling like a luxury he didn't deserve. The events of the previous day played in his mind. The crash, Oliver's cries, and the surge of adrenaline that allowed him to pull the cupboard off the little boy. His muscles ached from the effort, but his heart felt strangely light. As he stepped out of his room, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon wafted toward him. Following the scent, he found Jonathan and Oliver in the kitchen. Oliver was perched on a stool, cheerfully swinging his legs, while Jonathan flipped pancakes with surprising finesse. "Morning, hero," Jonathan greeted, his voice warm. Liam blushed, shaking his head. "You've got to stop calling me that." "I'm serious, Liam," Jonathan said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of Oliver. "You've gone above and beyond for us, not just once, but twice now. I'll never forget that." Liam shifted awkwardly, unused to praise. He sat down at the table, accepting a plate of food. As he bit into the fluffy pancake, he couldn't help but marvel at how different his life had become. Just weeks ago, he was scraping by on the streets, every day a battle for survival. Now, he was sitting at a breakfast table, part of a family he never expected to have. The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful moments. Liam found himself easing into the rhythm of life at the Carter household. He helped Clara with household tasks, accompanied Oliver on his adventures around the mansion, and even began to explore his own interests. Jonathan, true to his word, started involving Liam in conversations about the business and community projects he was passionate about. "You've got a sharp mind, Liam," he said one evening as they sat in the study, poring over documents for a charity event. "You might not have had formal schooling, but you've got the kind of intelligence you can't teach." Liam shrugged, though his chest swelled with pride. "I just do what needs to be done." "That's what makes you special," Jonathan replied. One afternoon, while Liam and Oliver were playing catch in the backyard, Jonathan approached with a thoughtful expression. "Liam, I've been thinking," he began. "You've been through so much, and I want to make sure you have every opportunity to build a future for yourself. How would you feel about starting school again?" The question caught Liam off guard. School was a distant memory, something he had been forced to abandon when life on the streets took over. "I don't know," he admitted, kicking at the grass. "I'd probably be behind everyone else." Jonathan crouched to meet Liam's gaze. "You've already proven you can handle anything life throws at you. Starting school might be tough, but I know you can do it." and I'll be here every step of the way." Oliver chimed in with a wide grin. "Yeah, you can help me with my homework." Liam couldn't help but laugh. "All right, I'll give it a shot." True to his word, Jonathan enrolled Liam in a local private school. The process was overwhelming: shopping for supplies, meeting teachers, and stepping into a classroom for the first time in years. Liam felt out of place among the neatly dressed students with their polished shoes and confident smiles. But he remembered Jonathan's encouragement and pushed through the discomfort. Slowly, he began to find his footing. He discovered a love for reading and a natural talent for problem-solving. The teachers noticed his dedication, and soon, even his classmates began to warm to him. Liam also continued to bond with Oliver, who proudly introduced him as his big brother to anyone who would listen. The two of them became inseparable, their laughter filling the house. Despite the positive changes, Liam couldn't shake the lingering shadow of his past. One evening, as he sat alone on the porch, staring out at the darkened gardens, Jonathan joined him. "Something on your mind?" Jonathan asked, sitting down beside him. Liam hesitated, then sighed. "Sometimes, it feels like I don't belong here, like it's only a matter of time before I mess it all up." Jonathan frowned, his expression serious. "Liam, listen to me. You've faced more challenges than most people ever will, and you've come out stronger because of it. You belong here, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are." The words settled over Liam like a warm blanket, easing some of the doubts that had been gnawing at him. One evening, the Carter household was thrown into chaos when Oliver came down with a high fever. Clara called the doctor, who assured them it was just a virus, but the sight of Oliver so pale and weak left Liam on edge. He stayed by the boy's side all night, reading to him and keeping him company. At one point, Oliver reached out a tiny hand, gripping Liam's fingers tightly. "You're my best friend, Liam," he murmured sleepily. Liam's heart swelled, and he squeezed the boy's hand gently. "You're mine too, buddy." By morning, Oliver's fever had broken, and the house returned to its usual calm. But the experience left Liam with a newfound sense of purpose. He wasn't just a guest in the Carter household. He was part of something bigger, a family. As Liam lay in bed that night, he thought about how far he had come. He still had doubts and fears, but he also had hope, something he hadn't felt in years. With Jonathan and Oliver by his side, he knew he could face whatever came next. The gentle chime of the grandfather clock echoed in the grand hall as Liam descended the staircase, his steps lighter than they'd ever been. He had settled into a routine in the Carter household, one that offered both comfort and growth. Oliver darted around the living room, giggling as he tried to evade Clara, who was attempting to corral him for bedtime. "You'll never catch me," Oliver teased, his laughter bouncing off the walls. "Don't be so sure," Clara quipped, her mock serious tone making Liam chuckle. Jonathan stood by the fireplace, a wrapped box in his hands. His face carried a rare expression, anticipation mixed with warmth. "Liam," he called, motioning for the boy to join him. Liam approached, curious. "What's this?" Jonathan smiled, handing over the box. "Something I've been meaning to give you for a while." Liam carefully unwrapped the gift, revealing a sleek black leather watch. The face was simple yet elegant, with a faint silver gleam around the edges. Liam's eyes widened as he realized it was the very watch he had admired in a store window months ago, something he never dreamed he could own. I don't know what to say," Liam stammered, his voice thick with emotion. "Say you'll wear it," Jonathan said with a grin. "It's more than just a watch, Liam. It's a reminder. Time doesn't stop for anyone. But what you do with it can change everything. Liam slipped the watch onto his wrist, the weight of it both literal and symbolic. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Jonathan reached into his pocket, producing another small box. "And this," he added, "is something else I thought you might like." Inside was a leather wallet, its interior lined with smooth fabric. Liam opened it to find a small, framed photo of his mother tucked inside. It was an image he hadn't seen in years, one Clara had unearthed while sorting through some of his belongings. Tears welled in Liam's eyes as he ran his fingers over the picture. "How did you—" "Clara and I worked on it together," Jonathan said. "I thought you'd want her close, no matter where you go." Liam nodded, unable to find words. The gifts were more than material. They were a testament to how far he'd come and how much he mattered to the people around him. The days that followed were filled with quiet joy and purpose. Liam split his time between studying and helping Jonathan with the Foundation's projects. In the mornings, he attended school, steadily catching up on years of missed education. His teachers often remarked on his dedication and curiosity, qualities Jonathan had always known he possessed. In the afternoons, Liam worked alongside Jonathan at the Grace Initiative. They visited shelters, spoke with struggling families, and planned programs that provided resources and education for children in need. Liam's favorite part was running art workshops, where he encouraged kids to use creativity as an outlet. "I never thought drawing could mean this much to so many people," he admitted one day as he and Jonathan packed up supplies after a session. Jonathan smiled. "That's the thing about talent, Liam. When you share it, it becomes something bigger than you ever imagined." Evenings were reserved for family time. The three of them, Jonathan, Oliver, and Liam, spent countless hours playing board games, watching movies, or simply talking about their day. Liam and Oliver grew inseparable, their bond deepening with every shared moment. One Friday night, Jonathan surprised them with tickets to a basketball game. Oliver's eyes lit up as they entered the stadium, the energy of the crowd washing over them. "Can we get popcorn?" Oliver asked eagerly, tugging at Liam's arm. "Popcorn, soda, candy, you name it," Liam replied with a laugh, relishing the boys' excitement. By the end of the game, their voices were hoarse from cheering, and their faces hurt from smiling. On the drive home, Oliver fell asleep in the back seat, clutching a foam finger he'd insisted on buying. Jonathan glanced at Liam, his expression thoughtful. "You know, I never imagined my life looking like this," he said quietly. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." For the first time in years, Liam felt whole. He had found a family, a purpose, and a future brighter than he ever thought possible. Did this heartwarming story touch your soul? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what inspired you most. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more stories of resilience and hope on our channel. Together, let's celebrate the small acts of kindness that create big changes. See you in the next story.